Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the full moon in Aries, which is occurring on October 20th, 2021 at 9:57 a.m. Central Standard Time, which is my time zone in the Midwest of the United States. So even if you're in Europe, even if you're down under, well, maybe if you're down under the Southern Hemisphere, maybe it'll be on the 21st. I don't know for sure what the time difference is, but in this vicinity of the 20th or 21st of October. And this full moon is going to be at 27 degrees of Aries. Now, at the time of every full moon, the sun is at that same exact degree in the opposite sign. So in this case, we're talking about Libra. The sun is in Libra. It's a late degree of Libra. So Libra is on its way to finishing up its annual transit of the sun through the sign. It's in one of the later degrees. And so when I feel like if you have a full moon in a later degree of a sign, that there is some old unfinished business that is coming to the surface. Now, the 29th degree would be the last degree, so I'm not saying that it is the last degree. But I feel like these later degrees make these full moons more intense. I don't know if that is, provable or not. And I'm trying to think back to September. I don't think it was some big deal when it was in Pisces. But this is Aries. And Aries rules the first house. So there is an immediacy. And it's a fire sign. So there's like this emotional immediacy with the sign of Aries. And if you are an Aries or you know an Aries, and if you are the Aries, if you have the sun or moon in particular, or even Mars, there and the rising sign could also demonstrate this quality of maybe being very impetuous, rash with what you do, what you say, how you feel, maybe being a bit of a hothead. And so with this kind of a full moon, it's not dreamy like Pisces. It's very action oriented. Aries is a cardinal sign, so it means that things can happen. And if they're not already occurring, people might want to make them happen. And I think, especially with this particular full moon, there may be this desire to take action. But will the action be smart, or will it be in that moment? The spontaneity actually being quite hasty and even diluted, because when I actually did this reading last night, and I'm doing it again because I think I was starting to drift off. Sometimes when I'm doing these recordings and I do it late at night, I start to fall asleep and I say goofy things. So I thought it would be best that I start over again. And there are some oppositions. Well, the sun and moon, they're opposing one another. That's what a full moon is all about. But the moon is opposing Mars. And this isn't an opposition, but Mars is squaring off to Pluto. That's heavy duty, because those are both very heavy duty planets, and they are forming a square that is very frustrating. So when you have a planet like Mars squaring off to another planet, it feels like it can't do what it wants to do. And if it's in a sign that is hot-headed, it can be very explosive. You could say somewhat luckily, Mars happens to be in Libra at the moment, so at least it's in this sign that seeks balance, harmony, diplomacy. But I just don't think that that's going to really cut it right now, because there's just too much going on. There's just too much that has happened. And it's like being fed up, you know. It's kind of like, since the sun is the dominating force and it's in Libra and it's in a late degree of Libra, it's like I've tolerated this for so long and now I'm about to lose it because I've been trying to put on this happy face. And that's kind of like, when Libra is trying to be on its best behavior, but then getting pushed too far. Before I go any further, I want to talk about the name of this full moon. According to North American folklore, or whatever you want to, however you want to describe it, but I've also heard that the Europeans called moons by different names as well. So maybe they brought it over to America, but they said it was Native American, so who even knows? I'm sure it's both, because farmers are farmers, people who are planting and being in touch with nature. Now, the weird thing is, I was just thinking in my mind before I even looked this up on Old Farmer's Almanac. And you can, if you're interested, you can go to almanac.com and just read it yourself about all these names of the full moons. But I was thinking about the blood moon, and I forgot that we had one. I knew we had one recently, but I guess it was in the spring. I'm in the northern hemisphere, so my spring, somewhere like April or something like that. And maybe I was thinking of Aries because I think of the god of war and blood. There will be blood, that kind of, that movie. What a great movie. But I was looking and I saw somewhere something about the blood moon. Now, it's not on this site, so I'm a little bit at a loss here. You can see it for yourself if you just look it up. But I did see them say it was a blood moon, so I'm going to put that in the title. But what they're saying on almanac.com is that it's the full hunter's moon. They say harvest moon, but I think that depends on, other factors. So it's the full hunter's moon. Other names are drying rice moon, falling leaves moon, freezing moon, ice moon, migrating moon. And, they're pretty self-explanatory. The season is getting colder, and therefore they're acknowledging that with the naming of that moon. But so getting back to what I think is going on here, Aries is a sign that is always looking for things, is very impatient. So at this time, because there's an opposition between the moon and Mars, people can, and also because the moon can be a time of things being revealed, whether secrets or people having some kind of crisis point, or even like on the positive side, it can be something that is connected to something coming to fruition. But there can be a lot of projection here because the moon represents the emotions and Mars represents anger. And so people can be using other people, and they've already been doing that. We can see that in the greater society as the bogeyman, the person who's responsible for all of their problems, all of their unhappiness. And when you have a hard angle between the moon and Mars, there can be anger that is expressed, but it's projected onto this outer entity. And when I say outer entity, it could be also like a particular person or people. And and like I said, there's also this square between Mars and Pluto. And Pluto, it can be power. It can represent trauma. It can represent control. Power and control are pretty synonymous. And Mars is that, Mars can be the will. It can be anger. Obviously, violence can be Mars. Pluto can also be that brutality as well. And Pluto is a shadow, so we could talk about the collective shadow. How is this playing out with what people are doing, and how, how are they? It's like acting out in a way that is destructive. This is a destructive aspect. And when I do personal charts and people have this in their personal chart, I typically think that they have come from a traumatic background where they have been abused. So this can be like violence, all kinds of things like that. But any contact from Mars to Pluto can also be bravery, can be that sense of standing up. And I do see some courage here, some standing up for oneself. The sun is in conjunction with Mars, so there's a warrior energy with people. And with the sun, what we're talking about is the individual. So it's not about and I'm not saying that there's nothing with relationships here, because there is. I mean, we're talking here about Libra and Aries, and Libra is the area of committed partnership, the seventh house. So Libra deals with relationships, and Aries deals with the self. And if you are either a Libra or an Aries, sun or rising sign, then this full moon can heighten, may be in that either the first house or the seventh house, and it can heighten that sense of you in relationship. And are you selling yourself short? Are you allowing somebody else to dominate you? And things like that. What you want to make sure is that if you feel like at the breaking point, if you feel like you've been tolerating something, and maybe even something comes out like some kind of a secret, and I'm saying this for everyone, but maybe specifically to Aries and Libra people, but to everyone, because this is where this opposition is occurring. This could be a theme for everybody on one level or another, but whatever. If you feel like, because of the full moon bringing up these emotions, dredging up these emotions, really, not to be hasty in your actions. Now, we never should be, but there are some times when it can really be more destructive than others. And this could be one of those times, because, again, I mean, think about how our life has just completely turned upside down in the last year and a half. I think about young children who, when you're like really young, like in elementary school or even younger than that, a year is like a lifetime. And so these young people have really just had to deal with this as such a big part of their existence thus far. And I wonder how they perceive it. I kind of look when I'm out and about, like seeing what the reactions are. Do they just seem like it's normal? And for the most part, it just seems like they have adapted. But for those of us who are older, and I mean not just in our 20s, but a lot older than that, we can compare life before March 2020 and afterwards. And before then, before March of 2020, and we know that we've never dealt with anything like this. And this is a time when some of the energy readers have said this is when things are going to really go down in terms of there being a new phase, more disclosures that kind of blow everything wide open. I I'm hoping for that because I think that, bring it on in the sense of like let's just, it's like kind of a boil that you that you have to lance. You don't want to. It's going to be gross, but it's going to be messy. But let's just get it over with. However, I'm not sure because we keep hearing stuff like this. So the point is that people are just, there's like tension building up. And when you have a full moon, I do feel these things. I'm kind of like at the point where I think the moon is not necessarily real, that it is a satellite. That's a story for another day. But it doesn't matter because I still think it exerts influence over this planet and whatever it is. And the point being that I feel some of these full moons. I was looking at the moon last night when I was taking a stroll in the evening, and I was thinking that I was already starting to feel this energy building. I don't know if it's just completely a figment of my imagination or if other people have felt that as well. And maybe it's because of these other elements that are coming into place that are going to gel. The point is that Aries is the first sign. It's the first house. And what that means is that there's not artifice with Aries. Now, if you're talking about an actual individual who is a sun in Aries, yes, there can be other factors that can make that person kind of fake. And I've witnessed this. But in general, Aries is like what you see is what you get. No holds bar. Is it no holds barred, right? Just in your face, combative, brave, authentic, that kind of thing. And fearless, I guess that's brave, right? And so it can be exhilarating too. I mean, it's not just something ominous. It can be exhilarating because Aries is a fire sign. Fire is about freedom. And this is emotional freedom. But it's like the tower moment. It's like, how does this all play out? Is there some kind of tipping point? Is this the tipping point? Is this just are we just getting warmed up? I don't know. But because I'm not looking at every day leading up to the full moon. I'm just looking at this one day where I live and how it's going to play out. In a way, I'm glad it's on a weekday. In the middle of the week, it's on hump day, because maybe that means it's not going to be as easy for people to run amok, if they feel called to do so, because it's it's not on a Saturday night or something like that. But I just know it's wackadoodle time sometimes, as I have had this happen more than once, where I'll be on a train, I'll be, going into the city where there's more people around, and I'll notice erratic behavior, and I'll say, okay, is there a full moon coming up? And so many times there has been. It's like right before it's going to happen. And I think that this particular full moon is going to be no exception, but it could even be on steroids. You never know in terms of how it all plays out with some of the, strange behaviors. And volatility is always attached to Aries because it is so irascible, or capable of getting in a hissy fit. But then you add to that the sense of what Aries represents, the immediacy, the impatience, and that can be quite a mix. Revolutionary. Um, and the thing is, it's like it's also very rebellious. One of the things that I have noticed is that the word freedom has been thrown around a lot recently in terms of people who want freedom for in different things, but for the same basic premise is wanting to have freedom over their own lives, and other people seeing that as some kind of political issue. And this has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with sovereignty in terms of our spiritual birthright and also our spiritual responsibility and what we came here to do. Because a lot of times, I mean, I really feel more and more that a lot of our spirituality was hijacked and turned into these things that were used as control mechanisms. And so that's why I feel that we have to take back our power. And it's just a matter of how do you do that? Sometimes revolutions are a necessity, but like I said, they can get very messy and it can be very dangerous. And so one of the things that I would, kind of advise people is to be very careful about getting sucked into something that seems like, that carries you away with it, because there's that definite possibility for some people that they think that they're doing one thing because they're being kind of manipulated on a very subtle level to do something, and then they become the fall guy. And you have to be aware at all times why you're doing what you're doing. For some reason, I thought there was a square between, or a conjunction between Mars and Neptune, but when I looked at it today, I don't see anything like that. For relationship issues, this really can have things come to a boil or come to a head. So if you have a good relationship, that's not going to be the fate. But if your relationship is already on its last legs, it can be one of those situations where both parties are kind of being stubborn, because we have squares between the sun and Pluto and the moon and Pluto, and it's like a power struggle. And yet when you have squares, there can really be this digging in of one's heels, refusing to budge, refusing to acknowledge the other person's point of view. You may be just saying, it's my way or the highway, and the other person is saying the exact same thing. And, going back to that opposition between the moon and Mars, again, these two signs, Aries and Libra, me and we. And I think there might be like one of those pop psychology books. Do I have to give up me to be part of you? Can I have something that is just mine? And the individuality. Now, which one wins out? The sun is in Libra, so the relationship is being stressed at this time. The emotions are the things that are trying to break free. And even though the sun is the aspirational self and what we strive to become, we can't deny feelings. Feelings have validity, they have a right to exist, but sometimes they're irrational and they're based on triggers from past trauma, past negative experiences. So they can be kind of muddled, feelings. And they're not really, the person is emotional about something that's not purely about what the matter of hand is about. It can be, going back 10, 20 years. You never know. And so people have to get clear on their reactions. If they feel like they are being triggered, they can't just project point fingers. They have to see what's going on. There's a nice trine between Mars and Jupiter, so that can be kind of the 11th hour, something happening or somebody doing something that makes things okay. Jupiter is this benevolent influence. And with Mars, it's like action is being taken that has a constructive purpose and actually being at the right place at the right time and things like that. The sun is trining Jupiter and the moon is sextiling Jupiter. So this is very good for having attitudes that are coming from a benevolent place. So, and we also, Jupiter has recently gone direct at this point. Oh, actually, just a couple of days before. And so it's kind of righting itself. It's in an air sign that deals with the collective. And this is very important at this juncture in the history of humanity on planet Earth, is that Jupiter in Aquarius, just like Saturn being in Aquarius, think back to last winter solstice, December 21st, when we had this conjunction there. What is this? What is the story of humanity? And how is it going to be added to in October? What are the new pieces of the storyline, the timeline, if you will? And so this is really showing that it's not just about personal relationships. That's a microcosm. And so definitely this has been one of the interesting little side notes of the some of the side effects of this shutdown and the related issues is that people have been reporting that they are finding themselves alienated from certain one-on-one relationships or even group relationships, like family units, like they're the black sheep, who's this crazy person apart from the others, who doesn't think like these other people do. And I can say this to this audience because many of you may be in that role. This is part of the ascension process, the awakening that is occurring. Some people call it the Great Awakening. And the point being that the people that you thought that you had all this in common with, it's like, I was thinking of that term, was it separating the men from the boys, and that is not toxic masculinity or male centrism for me to say that. I'm saying it's just the way that it's always been said. And the point being, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek too, it's just one of those things where, and I've read online and these kinds of things, people just have revelations like, oh my gosh, I thought that I knew these people better. I thought that we had all this in common, and it turns out that we're so far apart or we're going in different directions. And There's a lot of pain that's associated with that, a sense of loss. But again, we're talking about Aries, so we're talking about the self. First house matters. The full moon shining a light on that, but also bringing it to a sense of fruition. The harvest has come. You have worked on yourself, whether you know it or not. Just by living through these times, you have gone through certain things, and whether you want to call it a spiritual upgrade or whatever you want to call it, and now is the time that you're going to see some of those results. And I can't say that, oh, this is it, this is the banner month. But it certainly looks like things are going to be at a heightened level. Because remember, or maybe you don't know, in November we have the kickoff of the eclipse season at the end of 2021. What a perfect capper to another wild year. Some people said, I think even some, I don't know about astrologers, but some people said, oh yeah, 2021 is going to be a lot better than 2020. And I remember breathing a sigh of relief. And I think in some ways this has been more of a challenge because in 2020 we were, we had never dealt with this before. So there was a novelty to all of this. And then in 2021, we thought we had moved beyond a certain thing happening. And it's like, then we took 2 steps forward, we took 5 steps back. And it's like this Groundhog's Day scenario where it seems like every day it's like the same old, but we're waiting for something to break. Even if, it doesn't matter what kind of, what your beliefs are. And some people have differing beliefs, but there's that sense of expectancy. And it always like baffles me, confounds me, but also amuses me how many people think, if you want to look at its 2 factions, that the other faction is guilty and they're going to be exposed at this time. And everybody's waiting for this big reveal, but they're hoping that the other side is going to be the one that is revealed as the enemy, the horrible people, the evil people, whatever. And it's just bizarro world, So as we are in this month before the Taurus eclipse, which, by the way, because it's in November, it might even be felt a month earlier. So even at the time of the Aries full moon, there might be kind of the eclipse portal, or whatever you want to call it, kind of opening up, and that feeling of major shakeups happening. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope that you got something from this, and let's see what happens. Take care. Bye.